She bought lunch for a stranger with her last dollar, not knowing he was the new CEO of the company. She was interviewing with the morning sun streamed through the tall windows of the downtown cafe's 26-year-old Sophia Chen checked her phone for the third time in 5 minutes. Her interview was scheduled for 2 o'clock, which gave her just enough time to grab a quick lunch and review her notes one more time. She smoothed her crisp white blouse and adjusted the strap of her brown leather bag, trying to project confidence she didn't entirely feel. Sophia had been job hunting for 4 months now, ever since the marketing firm where she'd worked for 3 years had downsized. Her savings were nearly depleted, and this interview at Morrison & Associates felt like her last real chance before she'd have to move back in with her parents in Ohio. The thought made her stomach clench with a mixture of disappointment and determination. She had the kind of face that inspired trust, warm brown eyes behind delicate features, shoulder-length blonde hair that she'd styled carefully for the interview, and a smile that came naturally despite her current worries. Her professional attire was simple but well chosen, a white button-down shirt and dark slacks that spoke of someone who understood the importance of making a good first impression. As Sophia stood in line at the counter, she mentally reviewed her presentation one more time. Morrison & Associates was a consulting firm known for their innovative approach to business strategy, and she'd spent weeks preparing for this opportunity. Everything had to be perfect. Behind her in line stood a man who looked to be about 31, with dark hair and kind eyes that suggested both intelligence and warmth. He wore a casual blue button-down shirt over dark jeans, the kind of outfit that was professional enough for a business lunch, but relaxed enough to suggest confidence in his position. There was something approachable about his manner, the way he waited patiently in line while scrolling through his phone. What Sophia didn't know was that this man was David Morrison, the newly appointed CEO of Morrison & Associates. He'd been running the company for only 2 weeks, having taken over from his retiring father, and he was still getting used to the weight of leadership that came with the family business. David had decided to grab lunch at this particular cafe because it was close to the office, and because he appreciated places where he could observe people in their natural environment. He'd learned early in his career that understanding human nature was essential to good business, and he often found inspiration in watching how people interacted when they thought no one was paying attention. As they waited in line, Sophia found herself doing mental calculations. She had exactly $12 left in her wallet, enough for a simple sandwich and coffee, with maybe $1 to spare. It would have to last her until she hopefully got good news from the interview and could start planning her financial recovery. David was ahead of her now, placing his order with the friendly barista. "I'll have the grilled chicken sandwich and a coffee, please," he said, reaching for his wallet. The barista smiled and began preparing his order. "That'll be $11.50. David reached into his back pocket, then his jacket pockets, his expression shifting from casual confidence to mild concern. I'm sorry," he said, patting down his pockets more frantically. "I think I left my wallet at the office. Is there any way I could?" Sophia watched this unfold with a growing sense of empathy. She'd been in similar situations herself recently, the embarrassing moment when you realize you can't pay for something simple. Without thinking, she stepped forward. "Excuse me," she said to the barista. "I'll take care of his order, and I'll have just a coffee for myself." David turned to look at her, surprise and gratitude evident in his expression. "That's incredibly kind of you, but I couldn't." "It's no problem at all," Sophia said, already pulling out her wallet. "We've all been there." She handed the barista $13, $11.50 for David's meal and $1.50 for her coffee. It left her with exactly nothing, but something about the man's embarrassed gratitude made her feel like it was money well spent. "Thank you so much," David said, his voice carrying genuine warmth. "I'm David, and I promise I'll pay you back. Do you have a business card or?" Sophia smiled, the kind of smile that transformed her whole face. "I'm Sophia, and please don't worry about it. Sometimes we all need a little help from strangers." David studied her face, noting the genuine kindness in her eyes, and the way she'd handled the situation with such natural grace. "At least let me buy you lunch tomorrow to thank you properly." "That's really not necessary," Sophia said, collecting her coffee. "But I appreciate the thought." As they moved away from the counter, David found himself reluctant to end the conversation. There was something about Sophia's selfless gesture that had touched him more than he'd expected. In his position, he was used to people doing things for him because of who he was or what they hoped to gain. But this woman had helped him simply because it was the right thing to do. "Can I ask what you do?" David said as they found a small table by the window. Sophia hesitated, not wanting to admit she was currently unemployed. "I'm in marketing. Between positions right now, actually. I have an interview this afternoon that I'm pretty nervous about." David's interest was piqued. Morrison and Associates was always looking for talented marketing professionals, and anyone with Sophia's instinctive understanding of human nature would be valuable in their field. "What kind of company?" he asked, taking a bite of the sandwich she'd so generously provided. "A consulting firm downtown, Morrison and Associates. It's a big opportunity for me, probably my last chance to avoid moving back home with my parents." David nearly choked on his sandwich. The irony of the situation was almost too much to believe. Here was a woman who had just spent her last dollar to help him, the CEO of the very company where she was interviewing, and she had no idea who he was. "Morrison and Associates," David repeated slowly. "I've heard good things about them." Sophia's face lit up with hope. "Really? I've done so much research on the company. They have this reputation for innovation and treating employees well. The position is for a senior marketing coordinator, and it would be perfect for my background." David found himself in a fascinating position. He could reveal who he was, but something told him that might change the dynamic of their interaction in ways that wouldn't benefit either of them. Instead, he decided to learn more about this remarkable woman who had shown him such unexpected kindness. "Tell me about your background," he said, settling back in his chair. "What kind of marketing experience do you have?" For the next 30 minutes, Sophia found herself in one of the most natural conversations she'd had in months. David asked thoughtful questions about her work, her ideas for digital marketing strategies, and her philosophy about connecting with consumers on a human level. She was impressed by his insights and the way he seemed to understand the industry from multiple perspectives. "You really seem to know the business," Sophia observed. "Are you in marketing too?" David smiled, choosing his words carefully. "I work in business development. I spend a lot of time thinking about how companies can better serve their clients and create meaningful relationships." As their conversation continued, David found himself increasingly impressed by Sophia's intelligence, creativity, and genuine passion for her work. More than that, he was struck by her integrity and the way she approached problems with both analytical thinking and emotional intelligence. "I should probably head back," Sophia said finally, glancing at her phone. "My interview's in an hour, and I want to get there a little early." David stood as she gathered her things. "Sophia, it's been a real pleasure talking with you. I hope your interview goes well." "Thank you, David, and thank you for such an interesting conversation. It's helped calm my nerves quite a bit." As Sophia left the cafe, David sat back down and pulled out his phone. He had a call to make to his R director. "Janet, it's David. I need you to do me a favor. We have an interview this afternoon for the senior marketing coordinator position, Sophia Chen. I want to sit in on that interview." "Of course, Mr. Morrison. Any particular reason?" David watched through the window as Sophia walked down the street, her posture straight despite the challenges she was facing. "Let's just say I have a feeling she might be exactly what we're looking for." An hour later, Sophia sat in the elegant waiting area of Morrison and Associates, reviewing her notes one final time. The office was everything she'd hoped it would be. Modern but warm, with an atmosphere that suggested both professionalism and creativity. She could see employees collaborating in glass-walled conference rooms, and everyone seemed engaged and purposeful. "Ms. Chen?" A woman in her 50s approached with a welcoming smile. "I'm Janet Williams, Director of Human Resources. We're ready for you now." Sophia followed Janet down a hallway lined with awards and photographs of the company's charitable activities. She noticed several pictures of community events and fundraisers, evidence of a company that valued giving back to society. "Before we begin," Janet said as they approached the conference room, "I should mention that our CEO will be joining us for part of the interview. David Morrison just took over the company, and he likes to meet key candidates personally." Sophia's heart rate increased slightly. Meeting the CEO during her first interview was either a very good sign or a very intimidating prospect. She straightened her shoulders and prepared to make the best impression possible. Janet opened the conference room door, and Sophia stepped inside to find two people waiting for her. One was a woman she assumed was her potential supervisor, and the other, "Hello, Sophia," David said with a warm smile. "It's good to see you again." Sophia's eyes widened in recognition and confusion. "David, I don't understand. You work here?" "I do indeed," David said, standing to shake her hand. "David Morrison." For a moment, Sophia felt as though the floor had shifted beneath her feet. The man she'd bought lunch for with her last dollar was the CEO of the company where she was interviewing. The coincidence seemed too extraordinary to be real. Oh my goodness, she managed, her professional composure wavering for just a moment. "I had no idea." "Please, sit down," David said gently. "And don't worry, what happened at the cafe has no bearing on this interview. You're here because of your qualifications, not because of your kindness, though I have to say, that kindness tells me a lot about your character." The interview that followed was unlike any Sophia had ever experienced. Instead of the usual formal questions and rehearsed answers, it felt more like a strategic conversation between colleagues. David and the marketing director, Lisa Rodriguez, asked about her ideas for reaching new markets, her thoughts on authentic brand messaging, and her experience with crisis communication. "Tell us about a time when you had to make a difficult decision with limited resources," Lisa asked. Sophia smiled, thinking immediately of her lunch decision earlier that day. "Well, this might sound trivial, but it actually happened just a few hours ago. I was down to my last few dollars, and I saw someone who needed help. I had to choose between having lunch myself or helping a stranger. I chose to help, because sometimes the right thing to do isn't the practical thing to do." David exchanged a meaningful look with Lisa. "And how did that feel? Making that choice?" "It felt right," Sophia said simply. "I believe that how we treat people when we have nothing to gain or even something to lose says more about our character than anything else." After 45 minutes, David stood. "Sophia, thank you for coming in today. We'll be in touch soon with our decision." As Janet walked Sophia back to the elevator, David and Lisa remained in the conference room. "Well," David asked. Lisa grinned. "Are you kidding? She's perfect. Smart, creative, experienced, and apparently has the moral compass of a saint." "When can she start?" David laughed. "Let me call her tonight. I think she's been through enough uncertainty for one day." That evening, Sophia sat in her small apartment, replaying the day's events in her mind. The interview had gone better than she'd dared hope, but the revelation about David's identity had left her feeling unsettled. Had her gesture influenced his evaluation of her candidacy? Would people think she'd been manipulative, buying lunch for the CEO to improve her chances? Her phone rang, interrupting her worried thoughts. "Sophia? It's David Morrison." "Oh, hello?" Sophia's heart began to race again. "I hope you don't mind me calling personally, but I wanted to deliver the news myself. We'd like to offer you the position. And before you say anything, I want to be clear that this decision was based entirely on your qualifications and interview performance. What happened at the cafe simply confirmed what we already knew from your resume, that you're someone with exceptional character." Sophia felt tears of relief spring to her eyes. "Thank you, David. This means more than you know. Actually, I think I do know. And Sophia, tomorrow is your first day if you're ready. We'll start with orientation at 9 a.m., and then I'd like to take you to lunch, my treat this time." Sophia laughed, the sound bubbling up from a place of pure joy. "I'd like that very much." As she hung up the phone, Sophia reflected on the strange turn her life had taken in the space of a single day. This morning, she'd been desperate and nearly broke. Tonight she had a new job and the beginning of what felt like an important friendship. The next morning, Sophia arrived at Morrison & Associates feeling like she was walking into the first day of a new chapter of her life. Janet greeted her warmly and led her through a comprehensive orientation that covered everything from company policies to the coffee machine locations. "David wanted me to give you this," Janet said, handing Sophia an envelope with her name written in neat handwriting. Inside was a simple note: "Thank you for reminding me that kindness is always the right choice. Looking forward to working with you, David. Pavid. Your lunch money is in the envelope." Sophia smiled as she found a crisp $20 bill tucked behind the note. But more than the money, it was David's words that touched her. In thanking her, he'd given her something much more valuable. the knowledge that her instinct to help others was not just right, but recognized and valued. The morning flew by as Sophia met her new colleagues and began to understand the scope of her role. Lisa Rodriguez proved to be an excellent supervisor, someone who balanced high expectations with genuine support for her team members. David mentioned you two met under interesting circumstances, Lisa said as they reviewed Sophia's first assignment. He doesn't usually get that excited about new hires. Sophia felt heat rise in her cheeks. It was just a coincidence, really. I helped him when he forgot his wallet. Lisa smiled knowingly. David's a good judge of character, and he's been looking for someone who understands that business success should never come at the expense of human decency. I think you're going to fit in very well here. At noon, David appeared at Sophia's cubicle, ready for that lunch. They walked to a different cafe this time, one that was quieter and more conducive to conversation. As they settled into a corner booth, David raised his coffee cup in a small toast. To new beginnings, he said. To unexpected opportunities, Sophia replied, clinking her cup against his. Over lunch, they talked about Sophia's first morning, her initial impressions of the company, and her ideas for upcoming marketing campaigns. But they also talked about more personal things, their families, their career journeys, and their shared belief that success should be measured by more than just financial achievements. Can I ask you something? David said as they shared a piece of apple pie for dessert. Of course. Yesterday, when you offered to pay for my lunch, you didn't hesitate. Even though it was clearly a sacrifice for you. Where does that come from? Sophia considered the question thoughtfully. My grandmother, I think. She used to say that we're all just walking each other home, and sometimes someone needs us to carry their bag for a while. She taught me that kindness isn't something you do when it's convenient. It's something you do especially when it's not. David nodded slowly. Your grandmother sounds like she was a wise woman. She was. She also used to say that when you help someone without expecting anything in return, the universe has a way of returning that kindness when you need it most. Sophia smiled. I never believed in that kind of cosmic justice until yesterday. Maybe it's not cosmic justice, David suggested. Maybe it's just that kindness creates connections, and connections create opportunities. As the weeks passed, Sophia settled into her new role with enthusiasm and competence that impressed everyone around her. Her marketing campaigns were creative and effective. Her presentations were polished and persuasive, and her colleagues genuinely enjoyed working with her. But it was her relationship with David that proved most surprising to both of them. What had begun as an act of simple kindness had evolved into a friendship based on mutual respect and shared values. They often had lunch together, discussing everything from business strategy to philosophy, and Sophia found herself looking forward to these conversations as much as any part of her workday. You know, David said one afternoon as they walked back from a client meeting, I've been thinking about that day we met. About what might have happened if you hadn't been there. Sophia looked at him curiously. You would have figured something out. Called the office, borrowed money from someone else. It wasn't that big a deal, wasn't it? David stopped walking and turned to face her. Sophia, that day changed everything for me. Not just because you helped me, but because of how you helped me. No questions, no hesitation, no expectation of anything in return. It reminded me of something I'd forgotten in all the business school training and corporate strategy sessions. What's that? That the best decisions aren't always the smartest ones. Sometimes they're just the kindest ones, and that the kind of people you want to work with, to build a company with, are the ones who make those decisions instinctively. Sophia felt her heart skip slightly at the intensity in his voice. Over the months, she'd begun to realize that her feelings for David had grown beyond friendship, but she'd been careful not to let those feelings influence their professional relationship. David, she said carefully, I hope you know that what I did that day, it wasn't calculated. I wasn't trying to impress anyone or gain anything. I just saw someone who needed help. I know, David said softly. That's exactly what made it so remarkable. 3 months into Sophia's employment at Morrison & Associates, the company landed its biggest client yet. A tech startup looking to rebrand and expand nationally. David assigned Sophia to lead the marketing strategy, a responsibility that would have gone to someone much more senior at her previous company. Are you sure? Sophia asked when he offered her the project. This is a huge account. I'm sure, David replied. You have the skills, the creativity, and most importantly, the integrity to represent our company well. Besides, I have complete faith in your ability to see the human element in any business challenge. The project was demanding but rewarding, requiring Sophia to coordinate with multiple departments and present regularly to both the client and the Morrison and Associates executive team. She threw herself into the work with characteristic determination, often staying late to perfect presentations and review campaign materials. It was during one of these late evenings that David found her still at her desk at 8 p.m., surrounded by marketing materials and empty coffee cups. "Sophia," he said, settling into the chair across from her desk. "You need to go home." She looked up from her laptop, her eyes tired but still bright with enthusiasm. "Just finishing up the final recommendations for tomorrow's presentation. I want everything to be perfect." "It already is," David said gently. "You've been working on this for weeks, and every piece of it shows your attention to detail and understanding of the client's needs. But you can't pour from an empty cup." Sophia smiled at the familiar phrase, something her grandmother used to say. "I know you're right. This opportunity means so much to me. I don't want to let anyone down." "You couldn't if you tried," David said, his voice carrying a warmth that made Sophia's heart race. "Sophia, you've exceeded every expectation we had when we hired you. But more than that, you've reminded all of us why we got into this business in the first place. To make money," Sophia teased, though she could see David was serious. "To make a difference," David corrected. "To help businesses connect with people in meaningful ways. To build something that matters beyond quarterly profits." As Sophia gathered her things to leave, David walked with her to the elevator. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "Are you happy here? I mean really happy? Not just professionally satisfied?" Sophia considered the question as they waited for the elevator to arrive. "I am," she said finally. "Happier than I've been in years, actually. I feel like I'm using all of my skills, like my ideas matter, like I'm part of something important." "Good," David said, his relief evident. "Because I've been thinking about offering you a promotion to marketing director. Lisa is moving to our West Coast office, and I can't think of anyone better suited to take over the department." Sophia's eyes widened. "David, that's incredible. But are you sure it's not too soon? I've only been here 3 months." "Sophia," David said as the elevator doors opened, "I've learned that when you find someone with the right combination of skills and character, you don't wait. You invest in them." The promotion was announced the following week, along with Sophia's successful completion of the tech start-up project. Her colleagues were genuinely happy for her advancement, recognizing that her promotion was based on merit rather than favoritism. But for Sophia, the professional success was overshadowed by her growing awareness of her feelings for David. Working closely with him had only deepened her appreciation for his intelligence, his integrity, and his genuine care for both his employees and his clients. She was careful to maintain professional boundaries, but she found herself paying attention to small details. The way he listened intently when others spoke, his habit of bringing coffee to team members who were having difficult days, the way he remembered personal details about everyone's lives. David, for his part, was struggling with similar feelings. Sophia's kindness that first day had revealed something essential about her character, but working with her had shown him the full depth of her intelligence, creativity, and compassion. He found himself looking for excuses to extend their business meetings, to seek her input on decisions that went beyond her department's scope. The situation came to a head during the company's annual holiday party, held at an elegant downtown hotel. Sophia wore a simple but stunning navy dress that brought out the warmth in her eyes, and David found it increasingly difficult to focus on conversations with clients and board members. "You look beautiful tonight," he said when he finally found a moment to speak with her privately on the hotel's terrace. "Thank you," Sophia replied, her cheeks flushing slightly. "It's a lovely party. You should be proud of what you've built here." "What we've built," David corrected. "Sophia, this company is better because you're part of it. Not just because of your work, though that's been exceptional, because of who you are." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, looking out over the city lights. Finally, David turned to face her directly. "I need to tell you something," he said, his voice carrying a nervous energy Sophia had never heard before. "And I hope it won't make things awkward between us professionally." Sophia's heart began to race. "What is it?" I've fallen in love with you, David said simply. It started that day in the cafe, with your incredible kindness to a stranger. But it's grown into something much deeper as I've gotten to know the remarkable woman you are. Sophia felt tears spring to her eyes, but they were tears of joy rather than sadness. David, I love you too. I've been trying to keep things professional, but you make it impossible not to care about you. Your integrity, your kindness to your employees, the way you see the best in everyone. I've never met anyone like you. David stepped closer, taking her hands in his. So what do we do now? Sophia smiled, the same radiant smile that had first caught David's attention months ago. I think we figure it out together. Carefully, professionally, but together. Their first real date was, fittingly, lunch at the cafe where they'd met. They sat at the same table by the window, marveling at how much their lives had changed since that rainy day, when Sophia had offered her last dollar to help a stranger. Do you ever think about alternate timelines? Sophia asked as they shared a sandwich. David's treat this time. What would have happened if I'd been too focused on my own problems to notice you needed help? David considered the question seriously. I think we would have found each other eventually. People with compatible values have a way of gravitating toward each other. Maybe. Sophia agreed. But I'm glad it happened the way it did. It feels like the universe was testing both of us. Testing whether I would choose kindness when I could least afford it, and testing whether you would recognize character when you saw it. And we passed? David said with a smile. We passed. Their relationship developed slowly and thoughtfully, with both of them committed to maintaining professionalism at work while exploring their personal connection outside the office. Sophia's colleagues were supportive but not surprised. They'd all noticed the mutual respect and affection between their CEO and marketing director. A year after that first lunch, David proposed to Sophia at the same cafe, in the same booth where they'd shared their first real conversation. He'd arranged with the owner to have the place to themselves for an hour, and he'd decorated their table with the same kind of simple flowers Sophia preferred over elaborate arrangements. Sophia Chen, he said, dropping to one knee beside their table, you changed my life the day you chose kindness over practicality. Will you marry me and let me spend the rest of my life trying to deserve that kindness? Through happy tears, Sophia said yes, knowing that their love story would always be rooted in the simple truth that character matters more than circumstances, and that the smallest acts of kindness can create the biggest changes in our lives. Their wedding, held in a small ceremony surrounded by family and colleagues, was a celebration of not just their love, but of the values they shared. In his vows, David spoke about how Sophia had taught him to lead with his heart as well as his mind. In hers, Sophia talked about how David had shown her that success means nothing without someone to share it with. Years later, as they sat in their home office reviewing applications for the Morrison and Associates Scholarship Fund they'd established, a program that helped young people from challenging backgrounds pursue careers in business, Sophia would often think about that day when she'd spent her last dollar on a stranger's lunch. Any regrets? David would ask, noticing her thoughtful expression. About what? About buying lunch for a stranger instead of feeding yourself that day. Sophia would smile, the same radiant smile that had first captured David's heart. Never. That $12 was the best investment I ever made. Even though you didn't know who I was. Especially because I didn't know who you were. It means our relationship is built on who we really are, not what we thought we could gain from each other. David would nod, understanding once again why he'd fallen in love with this remarkable woman who measured success, not by what she'd accumulated, but by how she'd touched the lives around her. Their love story had begun with a simple act of kindness between strangers and had grown into a partnership that demonstrated the best of what two people could build together. A successful business, a loving marriage, and a legacy of generosity that would outlast them both. And sometimes, late at night when they were reviewing scholarship applications from young people who reminded them of their younger selves, Sophia would think about her grandmother's words about the universe returning kindness when you need it most. She'd finally learned the secret. Kindness doesn't come back to you because the universe is keeping score. It comes back because when you choose compassion over self-interest, you become the kind of person that good things gravitate toward. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, Those good things include love that lasts a lifetime,